City of Monona City Council. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder DePula.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Wood is excused. Alder Rademacher.
Here.
Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 19th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Hold on there, we're having some audio issues one more time here.
Okay.
Check here.
We're going to take a break to deal with technical difficulties. Okay, we're good?
That should probably fix it. Check with Jerry here. See if he can hear us.
He gave you the thumbs up.
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Thanks, Jerry.
There are no appearances, unless you have something I'm not aware of, Neil. I don't think so. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. Under council action items, we have one item under unfinished business. Consideration of Resolution 24-2-2672, approval of contract extension with Pelletier Waste Systems put forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve.
Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. We are here for the second reading tonight for the approval of this extension. There has been no new questions, no new information coming my way. Again, it's a 10-year contract for weekly solid waste collection and every other week residential recyclables collection.
Any questions? Comments? Teresa, did you?
I guess I only had a question about, how much of a demand is there for every week recyclables? I think we've long thought there was quite a big demand. Do you have any statistics about that?
I don't have any hard statistics, but over the years, I would say less than a half a dozen phone calls or requests asking about it. But in the contract, if a resident wants an additional cart, they can coordinate that directly with Pelletier. It's about $8.25 a month for a second cart.
So instead of every week pickup, you could just have 2 recycling bins. Got it. That's a good compromise.
Any other questions?
I just had a comment real quick.
Patrick?
Teresa, at our Public Works meeting, we did talk about this too.
Yeah.
And we talked about our contract leaves us the ability to, at some point in the future, if we find that there's a very large demand for it, that we can revisit it. So the reason that on the committee that we decided to go this route was because, it was about $95,000 more to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
Yeah.
But we do have that option in the future.
Yeah, thanks for that. I wasn't confident that there was a huge demand. I was just curious if we had any statistics on that. Thanks.
This would definitely help, though. If we end up with 200 people signed up, well, then
Yeah.
we know there's demand,
Yeah, that's cool.
Jackson, is there a problem?
No, I'm just fixing the feedback.
Oh, okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Then would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Hey,
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Hi.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Moving on to new business. Consideration of Resolution 24-3-2686, adopting a master plan for the San Damiano property. This is put forth by the San Damiano Steering Committee. I'm going to just start out with a few remarks.
Sorry, Mary, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that we have the person here for the approval of the CSM, and I'm just wondering what's going to be a quick up and down since it's been through multiple.
Okay, I guess we can move that.
I just figured rather than him sitting for the whole thing.
All right. Was Doug, Doug is on online.
He's available online, yes.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll take a pause and move on to item B, consideration of Resolution 24-3. We already approved you.
Yeah.
Todd, we
You're all
approved
good.
you already.
Approved.
Well, I consider stopping to say hi.
All right, item 2B, consideration of Resolution 24-3-2685, approval of a certified survey map, CSM, for part of lots 104 and 105 of the Winnequa Terrace Plat 906 Progressive Lane, put forth by the Plan Commission. This is started for immediate approval. Doug, would you like to explain why it's started for immediate approval?
Yes,
We'll vote on it.
thank you. Good evening, everybody. The reason for the request to start this application is a couple elements, really. So this has been through Public Works Committee as well as through Plan Commission for 2 reads. Very minimal comments throughout that process. And the applicant really did not know they would need this certified survey map. So right now we're about 5 or 6 weeks since the application first came across my desk. And I know they're looking to take advantage of the nice weather here to get started and begin the construction of the new home, all being well. So that was the reason for the request if council approves to do so.
Given that, is there a motion to take this out of order?
Motion to take it out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Doug, do you want to?
Thank you. I can run through this. So the request here is for 906 Progressive Lane. As you can see in the materials that were included in the packet, the property here sort of comprises 2 portions, or portions of 2 lots. So you've got the eastern 30 feet of lot 105 and the western 40 feet of lot 104. And the request, sort of the reason and what triggered this was the applicant is looking to come through, demolish the existing structure and rebuild a new single-family home. There would be no changes to sort of the outer boundaries of the property here. It's really the line running north-south effectively through the middle of the current property. Removal of the structure and the reconstruction necessitates and loses the grandfathered status, but also necessitates coming into compliance with zoning standards. And as determined here, it would sort of be bound by the lot line through the middle and have setbacks from either of those. So the request here is to effectively remove that middle line and to for all intents for the exterior boundary to remain the same. As we went through this, sort of some of the history as to why exactly there are 2 lots here kind of running, and this is the case along Progressive Lane. Apparently when it was platted, it was intended for 1 more parcel, 1 more property than actually is here. And so I think it's 8 and it was previously platted for 9. So that's why you see sort of portions. If you look in the materials, the property, both east and west of this, also are sort of following similar situation. So in terms of the specifics of this, this is governed by Chapter 473 of the city's Code of Ordinances, requires a recommendation from Public Works Committee, and that was unanimously recommended at their February 7th meeting, and was also heard for a pre-hearing and a formal recommendation at Plan Commission at both of their meetings in February. Very limited comments at either of those meetings. This has also been reviewed as is standard. This has been reviewed by Vierbecker, one of the surveyors they have on staff there, and I believe those materials were included as well. Some comments, some things to clean up prior to being recorded, and I do have those already. The applicant has shared those with me, so I'll be taking a look at those. Very minimal deviations from the sort of typical lot standards were this lot to be created today. Typically, the commission, Plan Commission is favorable when these conditions are existing. It's tricky to find another 300 square feet or something like that of the lot size. But generally, it was accepted that this is an appropriate size for a single-family lot, and they made a unanimous recommendation at their February 26th meeting. Thanks.
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, I
Lisa?
actually do have a question. This is for Doug. I'm just looking at the sort of the map of the property on page 21 of the packet, and there's the outline of the existing 2-story house that's to be raised, and then around it is sort of a rectangular dotted line Does that rectangular dotted line represent the easement? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, sometimes surveyors do this. They will include the setbacks. So that's sort of the buildable
Not the
area,
easement, I'm sorry.
that would be per the city's ordinance. So they've got
Yeah.
a 30-foot front yard, 7 side, and
Yeah.
40-foot rear as well. So it does not depict the proposed size or anything like that.
Yeah, I used the wrong word, my apologies. So that's the setback. But
Yes, that's correct.
theoretically, the new house could be as big as that dotted line.
That's correct.
Yep.
I just want to make,
As long
I
as
just
there's
want to
a-
make sure
there's a
I'm
couple of-
understanding how that works.
Yes, there's a couple other elements that would be analyzed as part of that as well. We have a 40% lot coverage percentage that we look at, and that would be for all building structures on the lot. That would include accessory structures, sheds, detached garages, things like that. So I'd also be looking at that, but sort of from a locational perspective of the main structure, the dotted line as shown is what would be possible.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What would be possible? I think all of us have seen some really lovely new homes going up in Monona. Very beautiful, beautiful homes. And folks are taking advantage of that dotted line, for a different way of putting it, that I'm looking at this map. It's an interesting place we find ourselves in. The current space between the current property and the current house and the other current house next to it on both sides, they enjoy a nice 14 or 12 or 14 foot, space. That could be cut in half. The new house could be twice as tall. So I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what our ordinances allow. And am I understanding that, is Mr. Gutman in the room? No?
I'm here representing.
Congratulations on your new house.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I don't know if I'm swimming outside my lane here, but I guess I would just hope that you would.
We are just discussing the
Okay.
CSM here.
Thank you. I'll
So
stop.
I know you have thoughts about that.
I do have thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions about the CSM? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Doug. Okay, we are going to move back to the San Damiano plan. And Andrew Kitzler is going to make a little presentation. First of all, I'm going to just say a few words. Just for those members of the council who were not on the council at the time, because this has been happening for about 5 years now. But as you know, in September of 2020, the Monona City Council made a unanimous decision to purchase San Damiano property, and then we took formal possession of the site in June of 21 and began working towards initiating a master planning process. And our goal from that beginning was that we wanted to involve input from as much of the community as were interested in giving it to us. And a few things had to happen before we could start. The Friends of San Damiano was formed. They committed to raise the funds to pay for the planning process. The city and the Friends agreed to a memorandum of understanding which delineated how our relationship would work during the planning process. The Friends went on to raise $143,000 to pay for the process and have continued to fundraise to defray the cost of the purchase and maintenance of the property. In the meantime, the city established a San Damiano Steering Committee, which was approved by the City Council and co-chaired by myself and former Friends President Andy Kitzler to help lead the master planning process. The committee began meeting in September of 2021, and among other things, the committee members provided their input on the planning process and helped with the search for a consulting firm to facilitate it. In May 2022, after conducting a series of interviews, they recommended the city hire MSA Professional Services, who have done a fair amount of other work for the city in the parks realm in particular. The City Council approved an agreement with MSA in June of 22, and planning began in earnest of July of that year. The steering committee met with MSA on a monthly basis through this past December to help guide the process. In January, we presented the master plan at our third public information meeting and again answered questions from residents. The committee met for a final time on February 20th and at that time approved sending the final plan to the City Council. The process has involved many, many hours of work by city staff, the steering committee, and the Friends of San Damiano. It's included input from literally thousands of residents of Monona and the east side of Madison and the greater Dane County area in the form of public information meetings, focus groups, one-on-one conversations, and surveys. I think we definitely met our goal of hearing what the public wants to see on the property, and as you'll see, that is reflected in the plan. So now I'm going to turn things over to Andy, who will provide a brief overview of the plan. A link to the entire plan was included in your council packet, and for anyone watching this evening, if you go to mymonona.com, you can find the master plan there as well. And if you haven't had time to review it yet, I would hope you're able to do so before our next meeting when we'll be voting. So, Andy, it's all yours.
Great, thanks. No, I appreciate the opportunity tonight. Certainly this was, as Mayor Mary mentioned, a large lift by a number of people. So we're really excited that we're at this point. If you look at kind of the beginning to the end, at least as far as the steering committee, it's almost been 2 full years that we have been talking about a variety of these topics. So I think we're at a really exciting point. The presentation that you will be seeing tonight, or that I'm talking about, am I good? Sorry. Is one that we provided during the public information meeting, so I apologize to anyone who has already heard those comments, but it provides a really good overview of where we've been, what we've done, and where we are today, and what steps we have to do moving forward. So, and then Neil is great, and he'll be advancing the slides as needed. So, the mayor mentioned a number of this timeline, but I just want to reiterate how this was a unanimous decision by the City Council back in 2020. Then it was also a combination of citizens that bound together, and alders at the time too, bound together and created the Friends of San Damiano. So I was president of Friends of San Damiano. I'm here tonight more as the co-chair of the steering committee as well. Wes is also here, and he's the current president of Friends of San Damiano, and he'll be here for questions as well. The other thing I want to point out in this, that the city and the Friends of San Damiano entered a memorandum of understanding. I want to point that out for a number of reasons, because it defined the roles between the two organizations, what individuals were going to do and not do. But it also stipulated that the Friends of San Damiano really are going to run with the fundraising aspect of this. As we all know, the city has a lot of priorities. We were exceptionally grateful, as a number of citizens are, that the city stepped forward to purchase this property. But I will reemphasize this throughout the presentation. All improvements moving forward will be fundraised for. So that is a huge lift for the Friends. That is something that was stipulated in this MOU, specifically for the steering committee and for the master planning process. So we were happy to raise over the $143,000 that was required for this, and so we're happy to say that that was not paid by the city. I will also reiterate, and you can hop to the next slide as well. Really, I'll just stop here real quick. Certainly, the mayor mentioned this, but to thank everybody that was involved. These are the members that were in the steering committee. There were also 2 other individuals that had to step off at some point during the steering committee's term. So I want to make sure that we thank all of them, thank all of the alders before you as well, or before me, I should say, for your time, commitment, and passion behind this project, because again, we wouldn't be able to do this without you. I will also finally just mention on that point that we have a very diverse steering committee. We wanted to get the school district's input. We wanted to make sure that we had Indigenous people's input and other walks of life throughout that, whether it's the city side of things or otherwise. So, as the mayor mentioned, we hired MSA, and they did an initial analysis, again, all detailed within in the larger packet. So they provided a site analysis of all of the site. They also helped us with the public engagement through a variety of forums, and then also planning the concept plans that we were able to consider. Hit the next slide. Part of the site analysis was looking at wind conditions, looking at soil depths, soil types, water depths, traffic control, different things like that. As you can imagine, or as you might think, this is a very complex property at a very unique position within the city, surrounded also by Madison and the water, and then surrounded by neighbors as well as a major thoroughfare too. So we wanted to make sure we really brought in as many data points as possible, and these are just some of them, more details in the packet. Next slide. This is just reiterating that it was about a 2-year process that encompassed a number of things. It encompassed three public information sessions, 3 different surveys. As the mayor mentioned, we reached our goal. Our goal was 5,000 unique individual input, and we actually got up to 6,000 unique individuals provided input to this. And we had public meetings every month. So we really feel like we have a solid footing in making sure that anyone who wanted to be heard, any idea that wanted to be heard, was provided during this process. I kind of mentioned all of these already. The other thing I will mention as far as public engagement is we also had stakeholder interviews. So MSA provided gathered groups of individuals and also had one-on-one meetings that was in addition to focus groups, in addition to the public information meetings, in addition to the surveys, and in addition to the public committee meetings. As you can tell, I'm re-emphasizing that this was I believe, a very thorough process. What came out of that first public information meeting was 3 different concepts, and I'll just brush over these. There was the first one was the historic reuse. Main point of that is renovating the house. Concept B was a minimalist approach, so taking down any structure, providing just a restroom and maybe a simple shelter, but just looking at paths and a little bit of parking. And then concept C, which was looking at a modern park, taking down the current house as it stands, and building a new facility that would serve its purposes. We then went back to the public and talked and received more feedback, and that's what we whittled down into 2 concepts. Also, after our first public information meeting, we went back to the steering committee and made sure that whatever decisions we make, we kind of have some goalposts and guidelines for making those decisions that we could always point to. For the sake of just reading it and making sure everybody hears it. So the steering committee committed to the vision to create a sustainable and serene natural lakeside destination, offering recreational, cultural, and education opportunities for people of all ages and abilities. This then led us into 5 goals for the property. Again, creating recreational, educational, and community gathering space of all ages and abilities to preserve the natural environment as much as possible. Increase public access to this. Again, this was private property. This is the first time the public has access to something like this. Honor and share the full history of the place currently called San Damiano, and then sustaining and supporting the property improvements and ongoing operational costs by leveraging philanthropy and revenue generating opportunities. Again, just emphasizing that last point, we know that the city has other priorities and we want to make sure that this is a sustainable solution moving forward. After all of that, we came up with 2 concept plans. Why 2 concept plans? We didn't make a decision on the house, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But what we did come out with all of that feedback was really some consensus items. 1, the parking lot being close to Monona Drive. You can see both plans have that. We knew we wanted walking paths with different surfaces that allowed peoples of all abilities to enjoy the whole property. We knew we wanted to maintain the gardens in some way. And we knew that we wanted these nodes. And I'll say nodes include outdoor classroom space. It includes natural play space, those types of things. So we knew we wanted nodes throughout. Those and others are standard on all of these. You'll notice the only difference is this one has the house and this one doesn't. This one has a new facility. The other consensus item we had, and why we kept the 2 and got rid of the minimalist, is we knew we needed a 4-season facility that allowed us not only revenue generating opportunities, but allowed people to enjoy the property throughout the seasons. So that includes outdoor restrooms that are accessible throughout the season. That includes space that communities can gather. That includes space that school district can bring kids and students. And that also comes with some requirements. One example being If they bring a class, it needs at least room for about 100 or more individuals in that space. So that's where the sizing gets. But really, and I forget what the next slide is, and maybe, okay. I'll get to this just shortly, but we can leave this here for everybody to enjoy. We didn't want to make an irreversible decision on the facility, and we know a facility decision is going to be based off of donors, to be frank. And so with that, we knew that we had a number of questions. It wasn't a cop-out by the steering committee for not making the decision. Again, we did not want to make an irreversible decision. We want to make sure that we're making the right decision and having all the data and having all the information. You notice the difference of the prices. So phase 1 through 4, exact same, again, those consensus items. Phase 5 is different because that's the facility. And I'll get back to the ordering of the phases. But what I want to highlight here is one example of a data point we need to learn more about is we know that there's a pathway to historical status, federal and state historical status for that facility, for the current house. That also has implications on tax benefits, which actually bring these costs a little bit more in line. And we need to learn a little bit more about that. And the steering committee knew that, realized it, and wanted to put these two plans forward. The other reason why we felt that it was comfortable to put these plans forward is these phases can happen at any point. So MSA put phase 1 through 5 working from Monona Drive more towards the lake as a starting path. But if a donor ever came forward and wanted to do XYZ, maybe phase 5 would move to phase 1, or phase 1 would move to phase 3, those types of things. But we knew we wanted to do those, and we knew we had to move forward with that. And we knew as a steering committee, while we make all those other research items, gather all that other information on the facility, that, hey, there's still an opportunity to move forward with any of those other phase 1 through 4 if necessary. Specifically within the house or a new facility, you can see the differences in costs. One other thing that I will mention as far as a facility is we want to make sure that we have a program plan. That with whatever facility, whether it's the current one or a new one, that we know what we are trying to achieve within both and what we are able to achieve in both. And so these costs aren't necessarily set in stone, but they're a good guiding light for us as we move forward. These are two comparable examples of particularly new facilities that we at the steering committee looked at and that we knew about throughout the state of Wisconsin. So we just supplied these as kind of ideas. You see one on the left just was completed in Outagamie County. And it was 5 million, 2 stories, 200 occupants, full kitchen with restrooms. Whereas the Lapham Lodge on the right side was a little bit cheaper, 150 occupants, 1 story, with a kitchenette and restrooms. These are, again, not set in stone, but these are some of the items that we'll want to make sure that we have in a new facility or a current facility, or any facility on the campus, on the property. I'm going to take a drink of water. I kind of touched on this, so we'll gloss over this a little bit, but again, I believe that this was a very thorough process. We asked a number of times about the facility particularly, and it wasn't unanimous one way or another, and these stats really just back up the idea why the steering committee did not make a decision on the facility and why we want to take our time and make sure that we're making the right decision. As I mentioned, we want to make sure we have a 4-season structure. We want to make sure both paths obviously are dependent on donors. We want to study more about the need before we make a final decision. And again, the steering committee believes both paths are viable, all depending on the revenue generating side of things. Oh, and donors, sorry. And then we can move to the next one. I think I touched on all those. Implementing the plan, and I'll give the mayor and Neil more opportunity to chat on this too, but from the city's side, really, we presented before the Parks and Recreation Board and the Landmarks Commission, received positive feedback out of both. We are before this city council today, and then with a second read later on in the month. This master plan will also allow not only the city, but also the Friends the opportunity to pursue additional grant funding or other donors. There's a number of institutions, I'll keep individuals in that as well, that are looking for a master plan, looking for a more formal action by city council to know that this is going to be forever preserved as a property, public space, and this master plan allows that to happen and allows us to move forward in those. The other thing the city, and this bullet point is in our next slide as well, is updating our memorandum of understanding with the Friends and the city. So right now that concludes at the conclusion of the next meeting, once this master plan is complete. And so we really want to look at what that next step is. One of those things that I alluded to was the idea that we want to make sure that this is a self-sustaining, revenue-generating, off the tax roll, if you will, piece of property and programming. And so what does that look like with that public-private partnership? And so we believe that that's a pathway forward that is, would be providing success for this property and for the improvements and for the future sustainability of the property. And so that's going to be something that we'll be exploring with the city. On the Friends side, as I mentioned, the first bullet point is the MOU piece. We'll be fundraising to support the existing operating costs of the park. So last year in 2023, the Friends provided all of the funding that allowed for the maintenance and of the property and operating costs of the property, and we expect to do that moving forward. We're also, there was a little bit of adjustment through conversations well before this point in the year, that the Friends would take on much more of the programming and take ownership of that. And that means planning it, working with the city to execute or help with anything necessary, finding the volunteers and making sure that we are doing a variety of things on the property that's bringing more of the public on to the property. So that's something we're also doing. We're also looking to build capacity within the board. So we are a small but mighty board of 8. And we want to make sure that we are expanding appropriately and expanding the skill set that we need as we look forward and we plan really for a large comprehensive campaign and fundraising for all of the amazing improvements that are possible. We'll also work in identifying naming opportunities, which potentially is the park, but also facility, room-wise, different things like that. And I should, step back and also say, all of this is a concept plan. This is not an architectural plan that once this is approved, those paths, the parking, the facility, you name it, is exactly where it shows in the plan. We will always have to go through the proper city process to get those approvals, and this is a city property. So that last piece about the naming, I just want to stipulate that we'd still have to work through, city process and making sure that works. And I think that hits everything. I'll pass it to Neil and the mayor, and feel free to interject on anything you want to add. But certainly, again, I mentioned Wes is here to answer questions as well.
Neil, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think just quickly, to kind of follow up on some of Andy's comments regarding the public-private partnership. Obviously, the advantage to doing that, certainly there are grant requirements with the existing funding and things in place that the city needs to retain ownership of the property. However, again, kind of outlining and being very specific with exactly what the responsibilities for maintenance and programming and just how the interaction between us and the Friends will be going forward. Essentially, it not only from just a logistics standpoint makes things more simple, it actually allows certainly the city still to pursue grant funding, but also allows the Friends to pursue additional fundraising, saying, look, these are the things we have that they have control and the ability to change and impact and effect on this process. Clearly identify them as a partner and set a clear path forward for them to do additional fundraising. So it is the MOU, I think, is at this point is definitely the key operating implementation factor that we need to move on at this point. Obviously, the partnership, I believe, has been very successful to this point. I don't think both parties have been worked together extremely well. I think we look forward to continuing that going forward. I think this is the point now where, again, at least now we have something to show either granting agencies saying, look, we have concepts that we can go for. Not simply saying that we're going to go with whoever gives us the biggest check, but at least gives us a basis to engage those partners, both in from a public standpoint for grants, but also from a private standpoint, which we think the Friends are certainly going to be the guiding entity that's going to help lead that charge for that. But the actual end use of a private use may still be an additional partner that's coming to us through the Friends group. So kind of outlining exactly what that process might look like and how we have already kind of established the ground rules to work together is an important factor to have that step and be very clear that we are in lockstep proceeding with moving forward on this property. So
I think I would add that if we do end up pursuing the historic tax credits, that requires a public-private partnership, really, or some kind of private
a
partnership.
taxable entity is absolutely required to take advantage of the credit. Absolutely.
I think I don't think I have much to add. I do know that the Friends heard over and over as they were doing their fundraising, we want to see a plan. And that's a big part of the reason we did the plan. When we did, and obviously we needed a plan to think about what we were going to do going forward, but I think this is a big step to finish the plan, so. Are there any questions for me or Wes or Andy or Neil or whoever? Nancy?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering a couple of things. One is, since I dare say Andy's probably a little bit better known in Monona than Wes is, I'm wondering if, for public reasons, if you could share your background so people understand the heft that we're beginning to bring to the table with your leadership. And also when Andy said, the decision about the house is dependent on what we hear for those people that might be less familiar than some of us around major capital campaigns. What do you mean by that?
Would you like to come up here? And both of you might as well come up here if you'd like, now that you're done with the... I'm assuming, Jackson, are these mics both working?
They look like they're on there. Yeah.
Hopefully, it looks like they're on. They're good,
I can
okay.
tell they are.
Okay.
All right, good evening. First question, who am I?
Yeah.
My name is Wes Mossenblock, and I'm a Monona resident since 2019. In my day job, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Wisconsin Historical Society. So involved in large public-private partnerships involving fundraising. So I think that's how I ended up getting roped into this. Just kidding, I'm enjoying every moment. I think through a connection met Nancy and Andy, and at the very beginning stages when all this was kind of forming, and thought, one, what a great thing that the city did to purchase the property and make that move, once in a lifetime opportunity, and two, now how do you put this together in a way that's going to make it a raging success? So, the master plan is a huge milestone, because it's the vision, it's what we're going to go out and do, and I think I was on the steering committee, and I think throughout the process we're really intentional about wanting this to be visionary, not wanting to think small but think big, because if we're talking about realizing major dollars, the vision has to be very compelling. And I think we also have learned through the process that going on the property, you all have been there, it sells itself. And the outpouring of people to attend events or get involved, volunteer, clean up, we're seeing a lot of energy, which is very exciting, because I think it means we've got a really special place and a great opportunity, and the fundraising will be successful. So this is a big moment because that vision's solidified, and two, I think the MOU, you said it already, it's a huge next step because, you know, we've defined what we want to become, but now we have to get into the details of how we're going to do it. And that's a huge set of things to work through, because if we're going to go out and have really meaningful, significant discussions with donors and major investors, we need to be able to say, well, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what our role is, and look at the relationship that we've defined. So a lot of things to work out, but I think, you know, it's, the city needs to build in some accountability in this MOU. I think that's the thing, is to create a, you know, make sure that the roadmap is adhered to, and there's some, you know, we've got these guideposts, and we know the lane that we're going to be operating in. But what the Friends need is a clearer understanding of what our responsibility is, and needs to be able to fulfill on the promises we're making when we're out there having discussions with donors. Because if we can't do that, then we can't deliver on the promise. So does that answer your question, Alder?
Yeah, well, I was just, it's great, thank you. I was just, in terms of the house, when you said we weren't sure, when Andy said we're not sure what we're going to do with the house yet, and more or less said we need to shop the house or shop the options around a little bit with major donors. I just, for those people that may not be familiar with major capital campaigns, I just thought, you know, it's for people who may not know, that it essentially means, you know, if some major donors that we're speaking to said the house was really, really, really important to them, that would make a difference. And we don't want to turn off anybody at the moment, or that our new facility is really, really, really important to them. We need to find that out before we make the call.
Yeah, and I think what's important now is that we're really clear about what we need to achieve through a facility.
Right,
So
exactly.
the house in its current form is not going to deliver what the pictures are of those new buildings. However, we need to test and validate whether we can rehab that house and check the boxes on the historic, get on the National Register perhaps, leverage those credits, and if we can accomplish those goals and do that, then it's a viable option. That's the study that we have to do. And yeah, we have to have a lot more discussions with donors, more feasibility assessment on what we think is the right path forward.
Anyone else?
Just a comment. I thought it was really valuable, Wes, that you're here tonight introducing yourself. You know, for those listening, it's really important for everyone to know that we've got some tremendous expertise in this group. It's not just a bunch of, you know, folks getting together and spitballing this idea. I mean, there's just, you folks you know what you're doing, and I'm just really so impressed at what has been accomplished. It's really nice.
Rick?
Yeah, you guys are great. So I really believe you are the right people to kind of lead this effort. So I'm very proud of what you've done, and congratulations to you both. I do have a question in terms of, you have two options and you're trying to get funding for one or the other. Are you going to like have a silent phase to this fundraising to figure out what the capacity is for each of these, and then go full bore with campaign financing?
So, I mean, my thinking on this is we have to exhaust, before we knock a building down and put a new building up in the property, we have to rule it out. That's kind of my opinion, and we need to make sure that we have a compelling option that checks the boxes, meets the goals, but also we can fund. So I don't think we've done that yet. I think that's the first step. And I think it starts with, that's got to be, you know, something that, it's not just me, it's the board, it's the council, it's the city. So we have to, in the MOU, we have to chart out how we're going to go through the next, you know, stages of planning.
Okay.
But that's, you know, that's how I would approach it, so. Yeah.
So there's some feasibility questions you need to really get some hardcore answers to, like the setback and whether
Sure.
a building can have the addition that it might need, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yep, and I think it's important to note that the master plan is a master plan. We didn't, you know, engage a firm to do any architectural programming on a building. I mean, they did some thinking, but not to the extent that we need, I think, to answer the questions. So.
Thank you.
And we do know that even if we're going to attempt to get the historic tax credits, we're going to need to make the front of that building look like it did in
Yep.
1894.
Yep.
And that's going to take some money, without a guarantee that we're going to get that
Right.
landmark status. And then that allows you to apply for the tax credits. So it's
It's
complicated.
tricky, yeah.
Very complicated. Anyone else have any questions? Nancy?
I'll take it, sure. So I think it says in the plan, this could, I mean, this is a long-term effort, right? 5 to 15 years, like this isn't going to happen next year. So I know that we're all feeling pretty positive right now about being able to raise the capital and being able to pull this off. You know, is there some point that you envision that if it's not working, or that, you know, that we're asked as a city to make a different choice? I have every confidence that it will work. I know you guys do too. But at the same time, again, thinking about our wider community and people that may listen to this meeting, you know, is this a endless process, or are you envisioning that, you know, you'll have a sense as to whether it's a go or not, and or when you make that decision? Not that you know when you'll make that decision, but how is that?
I don't
How
think it's
could
our
you
decision.
envision-
I don't think it's our decision. I think that those are the types of things we need to think through in an MOU,
In the
because
MOU,
Right.
right.
those,
Right.
so it can't be endless and
Right.
sit there as it is. So.
I think we envision having some goalposts
Yeah.
that
Right.
we need to meet, and kind of if-then sort of things. And obviously, we haven't started working on the MOU yet, have had some initial thoughts about it, but that's pretty much where we are right now. But that, I anticipate we're going to be spending part of the spring on that, because we need to get that finished.
I mean, the only other thing that I would add that is probably assumed is, I mean, even through the MOU and having those goalposts, there's, you know, set of steps that we have to reach. Communication is still gonna be happening between the city and the Friends, so it's
Mhm.
not that,
Constantly.
if an MOU is created, then two organizations are operating separately.
Right.
So, you know, the city will be well aware of the positioning at all points and kind of the success or otherwise. So.
And frankly, while I know a lot of people think the structure seems to be the main topic of conversation, I think what we heard over and over from people is the important thing is that we bought the property, and they want to keep the property. Vast majority of people who talked to us and gave their input, they want to keep it much the way it is. They want a serene, quiet, peaceful place that they can come and visit, and, you know, so we can still go ahead with a lot of the plan, if you raise funds, obviously, without, you know, we certainly probably wouldn't be doing the structure first, whatever it is, but obviously we cannot let the house just remain the way it is for a long period of time either. I mean, over time, things fall apart. We already have a furnace that doesn't work and some other issues, so we can't, you know, go on forever, certainly, so there's still a lot to think about here. Anything else?
Sorry.
Nancy?
Actually, I just want to make a comment rather than ask the question, which is for those people that aren't aware of it. Again, I'm just thinking of the wider community that might listen to this, might be interested. That's why we tape the meetings. Video the meetings, you know, we do have a public-private partnership, very well-known public-private partnership here in Monona, and we've had it for years, and that would be the Aldo Leopold Nature Center. So this is not something that is foreign to us as a community, and frankly, it's not foreign to many entities. Just about every municipality that you know, in doing the research in Dane County. I mean, Sun Prairie has a racetrack. That's
It's a public-private partnership, and the Madison Department of Rec, Parks and Rec, Bree Stevens Field is a public-private partnership, and the Duck Pond is a public-private partnership. So it's more and more common to share for a variety of reasons. Running a major facility is not a sweet spot of a Parks and Rec department, right? So it's a very common thing. Anyone else?
Can I just offer one
Sure.
more? Because I don't know if I'll make the next meeting, but I want to make sure I give a shout out, and I should have given it before, to the Parks and Rec Department and Public Works for a number of things that they've been doing and to help and to assist and to maintain and to really improve the property to be usable by all abilities. And as we all know, in the city of Monona, people go above and beyond all the time. And so I just wanted to make sure publicly to thank each and every one of those individuals. Too many to name, but everybody has been so supportive in making sure that that's a healthy and successful property.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning them, because both those departments have gone above and beyond in a lot of cases, helping things, so we appreciate that. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, this will be on the agenda next time. Alder Wood will be back. He and Alder Moore were both on the steering committee, so he may have some other things to add. But thank you both for coming and for giving a presentation, Andy. All right, now we'll move to the fun stuff. Item 2C, consideration of Resolution 24-3-2676, amending the 2024 capital budget for additional funding to complete water well aquifer pump maintenance put forth by the Public Works Committee. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. So we do have capital budget funding approved in the 24 capital budget to do well maintenance work at well 1. We've been recently made aware by one of our staff members that our water pumping level at well 3 is nearing the screen intake of the aquifer pump. There's a graph that I included in the packet tonight for you to take a look at, as well as an example of what an aquifer pump might look like. So we're approaching about 5 feet at our pumping water level. We're okay. We've changed the cycling of well 3 instead of running it 2 cycles to every 1 cycle of well 2 and well 1. We've evened out all the pumping cycles, so that will give us time. But my goal here is to get this capital budget amendment, perform the aquifer maintenance per the DNR schedule. Well 1 was due this year. It's about every 10 to 12 years that they want you to pull the pumps and do maintenance. So well 3 would have been our 3rd pump, so it would have been in 2026. So we're wanting to bump that up, get it done this year, and get the inspection done. You can see by that bar graph where we started dropping off in the pumping level first quarter of 2020. And if you look at the chart that has the picture of the pump, you see the 230-foot number there. That's our airline length. So at the bottom of that 230 feet, we cannot measure the water level any longer. So you see the extra 5 feet, that's where the impellers are for this pump, and then you see the 6-foot screen, that's where the water is intakes and comes to the surface. So the $31,000 that's on the price quote, that will get us pulling the pump, inspecting it, and reinstalling it. My goal with the amendment is to add about 40 feet of pipe column, so it'll drop that 230 feet down to about 270 feet, and giving us more capacity for the next 10 to 12 years. The other items that's in this price quote, if we need to do another motor replacement or a new pump, I'm coming back here because I'm not anticipating that. The current motor and pumping system is running good. But my goal is to simply extend 40 feet get us a nice, good pumping capacity, and then, you know, in 12 years, we'll pull it again and do more maintenance. So that's my request. We'll be going to Public Works Committee this Wednesday and then back here on the 18th.
Any questions for Dan? Brian? And then Rick?
So if I follow correctly, well, 1 was set for this year, and then 2 next year, 3
Right.
the following. 3 is the priority. Is 1 still a priority this year? That should they really be shifted all a year, or should we be doing well 3 because it's needed, and well 1 because it was slated and it's equally needed, or your advice on like shifting it down by a year?
So my recommendation, because well 3 is our biggest producer, it's our main well. I believe that's what I would recommend. We carry on with the priority.
And then 1 and 2 just shift down?
Yep, correct, yep. So the DNR, I believe that the cycle is every 10 to 12 years to pull it, do the maintenance, rebuild them, things like that. So the DNR knows, based on our pumping records, that this is our main performing well. So this would keep it as our main well.
Rick?
So I guess I'm curious how the aquifer is affecting the other pumps. Are they also facing a situation where they're not able to reach as far as they need to?
Each well pump that we have is set at a different level. We are not seeing the impacts there because based on the pipe column and intake versus the pumping level at those aquifers, we're not seeing that at those wells. We're seeing it at well 3.
Interesting. So the graph you showed us was just for well 3.
Well 3, correct.
And since 2020, you've had that additional steps you've had to go to get water.
What the graph shows, so the blue line you see is called the static level. So when the
Right.
pump is not running, that's what the water level comes back to. When the pump is turned on, you see the pumping level, that's the reddish orange line, and that's what drops down. I think our deepest that we got was about 228 feet on our readings. So that's the movement that we have in that well. Back in 2013, we had a static level of 80 and a pumping level of 174. So that kind of shows you how much that well has changed over time.
And to get to those greater depths, you don't have to do additional drilling?
The aquifer is already at a pretty deep depth, about 960, 70 feet, somewhere in that range. If we want to go lower, there's going to be a point where we have to drop the casing inside the well.
Right.
So we'll figure that out once we get the aquifer pump pulled. They videotape the well. So there's decisions to be made yet, but the casing, a casing is like a solid surface that cuts off groundwater. Let's say the casing's at 250 feet below. From 0 to 250, it blocks off water that can enter the aquifer. It forces water that's lower in the aquifer into your usable space. So we would have to determine if in the future we need to drop the casing as well. But as far as the drill depth goes, we have adequate depth to the well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, consideration of Resolution 24-3-2677, amending the 2024 capital budget for the purchase of replacement trash and recycling carts, put forth by the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. This is first reading tonight. We also have this slated for this coming Wednesday at Public Works Committee and then back here again on the 18th. This is not budgeted in the capital budget, so this would be a new allocation. I'm seeking a capital budget amendment for $7,300 to purchase 54 trash carts and 54 recycling carts. The past probably 5 to 6 months, we've seen our inventory deplete down to almost no trash carts and, or I'm sorry, no recycling carts and about 11 trash carts. The recycling carts have been in the system since 2004. I think in 2003, the city passed a resolution to go to automated recycling. So the carts come with a 10-year warranty, so we're well past the warranty for the recycling carts, the bulk of them that's in the system. And we're starting to see cracking. You know, it's not from the trucks that are collecting it, it's just wear and tear on the cart. Moving forward, about every other year, I'm planning to add a capital budget item. 54 is the minimum order that we can place. So we do need both, so that's why I have 54 of each. We do have a balance in funding for a project that we completed last year, the Tecumseh Bridge End Wall Repair Project. The only item that we have on that project to do yet this year is some asphalt approaches to the bridge. But we have adequate balance. Right now, it's $125,000. The asphalt is probably less than 50, so we have adequate funding. It's a general obligation, note funded project, and this is nothing related to utilities. So according to Mark in finance, it should be a seamless transition of funding. So seeking your approval in 2 weeks for this one.
Questions? I wondered where that 54 number came from. Some kind of odd.
Yeah.
Rick?
So each of these carts costs approximately $700. 108.
$54.38 a piece.
How much? 58? Okay.
The yeah, 54. So the solid waste 54 carts, price $54.38. Extended price is $2,936, $52. There's shipping costs on there, $411. So miscellaneous cost brings it up. So for the trash, it's $3,571, and recycle $3,703.
Oh, so there's this cost for shipping.
We do have to pay a shipping cost.
Oh, okay. So including shipping, you're
Yeah.
getting closer to 700.
700 for one cart?
No.
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 The price that-
That's only 54 bucks.
Yeah, the
Right,
price.
but what are you-
If you get 100
That's what
of
I'm
these,
asking.
and you divide 100 into 7,300, you get closer to 700.
70.
70, okay.
Yeah, that,
I get it. Sorry, my math.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, next item.
Okay.
E, consideration of resolution 24-3-2678, amending the 2024 capital budget for engineering assistance to renew the 2001 Wisconsin DNR approval of well 4 site location, also put forth by the Public Works Committee. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. This one as well, we'll be discussing this at the Public Works Committee this week and then back here on the 18th for the second read. We did receive prior approval in 2001 from the DNR for the well 4 site location at Waterman Way Park. That expired in 2003. So I'm seeking a capital budget amendment of $10,000 to renew the site approval with the state. We're in essence going to review the documents that we submitted back in 2001, a site investigation report and a survey. We're seeking the assistance from Bierbecker to assist us with this here, but it's in essence kind of getting our ducks in a row, you know, for whatever happens with the City Hall facility. You know, we have an issue going on with well 3 that I think what our plan is to add depth to that, but it doesn't hurt to get this well 4 site reestablished with the state, get the approval. At least we have that in our back pocket. So that's in essence what we're doing here with renewing the well 4 site location.
Questions, Brian?
And Dan, tell me if I have this wrong, but the little SketchUp that I see of the proposed location, has it tucked closer to Winnequa Road versus the far southern portion? And although I can't remember I don't believe that there was any active proposal from Parks regarding this open space. It seems like if we were to make use of this space in any other way, it would be most ideal to have that well tucked on the far southern portion. Is there a reason that it couldn't be located there?
Well, I have very limited experience with drilling new wells. My previous stop in Wrightstown, they had drilled many test wells trying to find one adequate spot. So when you drill your test well, you keep your fingers crossed that you get good water. So on this location, you know, we basically have from Winnequa Road to Clear Spring Court. Sometimes when you drill your test well, you can drill it to the size of your finished well. And if it's a good producer and it has good characteristics, you could save money that way. But mostly you drill your test well and then you move over a certain amount of feet and then you drill your final well. So where you see this proposed pump house on this map isn't necessarily where it's going to be, but it's going to be somewhere in that park.
Because that's where the test drilling took place.
There
Do we
was-
know if they explored that whole park, or did they just explore that northern?
There was no test well that was drilled.
Okay.
It was just a site investigation that they completed in a survey, so that's what was submitted to the
Okay.
DNR. So anytime that you drill a test well, your fingers are crossed that you find good water. Or that you find water, but in Wisconsin, we're fortunate. So this is an identified location that the city found back then. I don't know of too many other properties in the city that we could go with for a well 4 location. But this one already has state approval. So I think we'd like to stick with it.
I think obviously there's a lot more work to be done here.
Absolutely.
Before we're talking about a site and parks will be involved in
Right.
any decision and.
Right.
But, I'm sorry.
Rick?
You are committing, if we do choose this site, we are committing to put some kind of structure there, right?
What this does is it approves the site with the state. What commits the city is if we commit capital budget dollars to drill a test well, and it proves to be a functional well with good quality water, then we're committing to this site.
And so some level of structure will be necessary at that point.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so things like a backup generator that could cause noise, those are things you have to take into account, right?
Yes. Yes, you're looking at a fully functional facility that will have fluoride and sodium hypochlorite in it. You're going to have backup generation. You're going to have pumps and motors, but they can construct these facilities to dampen any neighborhood noise that you might get from a generator. You want those things
All right.
as a backup to supply water.
Yeah. I just recently saw another city approve a well with the generator outside,
Mhm.
and I was hopeful you would say you would put it inside, because
Well-
that's a residential area, and I think it would be disturbing not to have it inside.
We currently have all of our generators outside. We have a natural gas generator at well 2. We've had 0 complaints.
Wow.
We have lift station generators of the same.
There's one across from my house, we never hear it.
One near Andy Kissler's house.
I would think
We
that
haven't had any
if,
complaints.
I would think that if we had a situation where we needed to generate power in order to pump water for our infrastructure in Monona, that the last thing that people would think about would be complaining about the noise
Right.
that's providing them the
Really?
temporary
I
water.
mean, yeah, this
If you
is,
have to have water, you have to have water. It's-
Right.
Yes.
You don't have a choice of where to.
right, and the DNR requires you to have backup power.
Right.
So, I mean,
Backup, yeah.
But you have to run it on occasion
But it's,
just
We-
to
we
make sure
run
it's
it-
functional.
we run it under load once a month for 30 minutes, the first Wednesday. So when the siren sounds that morning is
Hmm.
when we have all of our generators programmed to run.
Hmm.
But you're right. When they construct these facilities, they nowadays construct them to fit into the neighborhood as best as they can. But there will be those components to these structures.
Mhm. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, next item, consideration of resolution 24-3-2679, approving a design contract for Nichols Road reconstruction, also put forth by the Public Works Committee, and Brad is going to address this one.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Brad.
All right, so this is for design of the Nichols Road project. Is slated for reconstruction from Winqua Road to Maywood Road. This is primarily for the purposes of pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements. It will also attempt to accommodate any potential future civic campus facility upgrades, whatever they may be, new driveways, what have you, pedestrian access, bike access if needed. This realigns the Schluter intersection, which is currently a blind intersection, which we've had multiple complaints about. It realigns the pedestrian crossing instead of the diagonal crossing, which is more than 75 feet long, that it's currently up there. It'll go straight across the street, so it'll be about 32 feet across, so I'm cutting it more than in half. We'll also put the current our rapid flashing beacons that are there, we'll just take them down and put them back up in the new location. This is a federally funded project, so there's a DOT process involved with this project, which makes it more expensive and more cumbersome for the city. It also makes it, instead of a typical 1-year design process, it's now a 2-year design process. Final design would be in 2025. Bid letting is done by the state, not by the city. The state handles all of the bidding of the project for anything that's federally funded. And that would happen late 2025 or early 2026. And then construction is slated for 2026. We've discussed this in terms of the preliminary design that we brought forward for capital budget. It has a shared use pathway on the south side of the street. Has the potential to accommodate future bus accommodations if necessary, or infrastructure. We would need to know that by the capital budget season this season if we needed those. And then there are some ineligible costs associated with the design that are not part of their scope. Some of those things include design of any potential retaining walls. Utility construction is not part of this design cost, but it's also not eligible for grant funding either, so we would probably put that in as a separate scope item for 2025 if we wanted to do utility improvements. For instance, there's the possibility we would need to upsize storm sewer infrastructure to accommodate any larger civic campus building. There is also partially plugged pipe in Winnequa Park that goes diagonally across right out in front of the library parking lot to the lagoon. It cuts straight through the fairgrounds of Winnequa Park that are used for all the event space. It inhibits where we can put, or prohibits where we can put the tent and other structures because you can't stake over the top of it. There's also a drain in the park that backs up during really heavy rain events. Again, it's an undersized pipe and it's partially clogged. So these things would be improvements that we could do with this project. Again, utility costs with any DOT contract are not eligible for funding. So all of the funding that's allocated for this project goes towards the street infrastructure itself. The bedding, curb, asphalt, striping, what have you.
Questions? Brian?
And I tried my best to read the materials, and the item that's the potential parking lot access driveway realignment with the Healy Lane section. If I observe this correctly, the current access point, for example, for buses, staff, and other vehicles going to the elementary school, currently are able to bypass both of our city or parking lots and just get into the school lower lot. Would this cap that piece off and then have them turn at what aligns with Healy? My concern is that parking is for the community center and senior center. And would that be the only point of entry and exit then for all of the lower lot of the school?
Let me preface my answer with that schematic is conceptual at this point.
Perfect.
It has only to do with if it is deemed necessary, A, and if there is any type of required realignment due to whatever may happen with a future public safety building or civic campus building.
Okay.
So if the city needs to move the structure of that new facility down west and south, then our current parking that is there, which really truly needs to be reconstructed at some point very soon, and it doesn't maximize parking space, it would be gone, right? And so then we would be building either right next to or over the top of the existing drive access that you're talking about, and so we would have to realign it. The thought with that, from an engineering perspective, is a four-way intersection is much more easily controlled than a driveway and then an intersection and a driveway and an intersection and driveway.
Yeah.
You can get all your ped crossings all in one spot. It's always safer to cross at the minimal amount of locations and then maximize safety as opposed to having crossings here and there all the way through. So that's just conceptual at this point. Also ineligible in terms of the cost because it wasn't in the scope of work in the grant application. Because at that point,
portion.
Right. At that point in time, there was no discussions whatsoever about the civic campus building, outside of the fact that it was necessary that we needed one in the next 5 to 10 years. And so we put it in the grant application as this project is a part of a grander scheme and vision for the entire city campus area, including the parks, and the fact that the multi-use path would connect to future multi-use paths in Winnequa Park, future multi-use paths in Maywood Park, and effectively bypass the need to use Winnequa Road if you didn't want to, and be able to be on an off-street facility all the way from Maywood Park to Winnequa Road, or all the way to Progressive Avenue. So you could use those shared use paths. It's like almost,
Cut all the way through.
I want to say it's close to like 3/4 of a mile of off-street facilities at that point. So.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the next. I think you're up for this too, aren't you, Brad?
Yeah,
Thank you, Dan.
Yep. I could leave and let Ryan take over.
Consideration of Resolution 24-3-2680, approving a contract for preliminary design of library lower level HVAC improvements put forth by the library board.
All right. Hello, everyone. Here representing the library and to answer any questions you may have regarding what's going on, but I will defer to Brad's knowledge regarding the project itself as project manager.
All right, so this is for preliminary engineering to reconstruct the library lower level HVAC system in a comprehensive and holistic manner. So the system in the lower level has many qualms and quirks. That's putting it nicely. It's a Frankenstein system, much like the buildings that we have on city campus. It has been patched and upgraded and patched and replaced here and there, hodgepodge mess kind of thing. So we just got a maintenance report done. We have our preventative maintenance contract and he inspected, and they were attempting to fix some of the heating and air conditioning issues with temperatures and airflows that we have down here. And they found that they have no devices whatsoever that can communicate with the old controllers and program that are on the controllers. If you think of them like little computers, these are like MS-DOS And we're trying to talk to them with, 2016 Windows, and it's just not communicating.
Come on, Brad, I know you can find us something. You always
So- We did what we could to make the temporary improvement. It did improve, but we don't have control over the system. So if we were to need to test airflows, we can't ramp the fans up and down. We can't control temperatures, really. So at this point, given that, and then there's also bits and pieces of the system that are fairly substantial mechanical pieces of equipment that are dating back to the 80s. And then our boilers our boiler is already 23 years old this year. So by the point of 2026, which is when we're slated for construction, it'll be 25. And ASHRAE life cycle for those types of boilers are about 20 years. So we are at the end of the useful life of that boiler system. And most of the controls need to be replaced. Booster coils in the ceiling would be turned into VAVs and stuff like that. And then other parts of this, we would look for energy efficiency improvements where we can and what's feasible for this building, given our current HVAC makeup. What we are not looking at doing currently at this point is taking out all the ductwork and replacing it. It's just, some ductwork is in the floor, in the slab. So we would attempt to reuse what we have as much as possible. Cut costs where we can, where it makes sense, add new features that maybe are above and beyond but help control the spaces in a lot better manner. If you look at this facility, this lower level, it's not used like the upper level. It's not from 8 to 8. The lower level is, this room is used for 2 hours and it's not. And then that room's used for 2 hours and it's not. And that room's used for 2 hours and it's not. One room is a storage space. One room is your break room. So we would address the needs of these spaces in a lot better manner with this project. So.
Questions, anyone? This has been a long, long process, dealing with this. And in part, it's caused by the fact that when we did the addition, we did not have the money to put in a new HVAC system at that time, and it's been an issue since long before that. But I think we'd all agree it's warmer down here now than it used to be. You're not sitting here in a
Yes,
winter
you just
coat.
put it-
I just put my down back on, but don't mind me. But we've had nights when it was like 60 down
Yeah.
here, so
Yeah.
this
Good
is much
Sierra
better.
breath, yeah.
Is that because of our new coal power plant in the basement?
Yeah, exactly. It's
We addressed this space in particular with a fairly cheap fix. It's not perfect by any means, but we basically dedicated one of 2 air handlers for this space, which meant we could control that air handler just for this space. So
we appreciate that. Yeah, whatever that noise was. Anyway, any questions for Brad? Okay, we will move on to the next library item, which is consideration of Resolution 24-3-2681, amending the 2024 capital budget for design of library rooftop and building envelope repairs, also put forth by the library board.
all right, so this project is stemming from a building inspection that we've done in 2020 for here in the Public Works Garage, where we were having issues, if you want to call them spontaneously, where all of a sudden a leak would appear. Well, Public Works Garage, let's just say leaks have been appearing there for like decades and not addressed, so that's a different story. But here we have replaced on an annual basis ceiling tiles and other things, insulation, and patched holes, and done what we could to prolong the life of the roof. Another one of those things where materials are materials and they have a shelf life, and it's the roof on both parts of the facility, new addition and original part, is now 23 years old. By the point of reconstruction, it will be 24, so Usually membrane roofs are anywhere between 20 and 30. It totally depends on the exposure, the use on top of the facility, how much traffic it's gotten, what's up there, the weather that we've gotten, if we've avoided major issues with freezing rains or hail or what have you. The shingle portion is typically 20 to 30. Asphalt shingles, the way they are now, usually you're going to get about 20 good years out of it, and then they'll really start to ravel. And we've been seeing that in the original part of the facility as well. We also have some issues with water damming. We have 2 additions on the original part of the building. One is a foyer at the front of the entrance towards Schluter, and one is the director's office, where they've put on space, and when they did so, they tied the roof in. When they tied the roof in, the tie-in is higher than the original part of the roof, and so when water comes down, it hits a dam, and it sits there, and it doesn't shed properly. And if it freezes, especially when it freezes and melts, then it seeps through the shingles and it drips into the
Are
building.
you saying that's happening with that new part we just finished at the front?
Yep, where it meets. Where it meets. The brand new.
And no one on the facilities committee caught that or anything, or?
It wasn't done as it was planned. It wasn't installed per the plans.
Can't we do something about that?
How did that happen? Yeah.
Yeah. Architect didn't catch it.
Okay.
So, that would be our representative for that project anyway. So anyway, as that was designed, we would if you want to call it a shim, fur out the roof line, so we would add structure to the existing substructure of the roof, the trusses, and make it all one pitch, so it pitches gradually off, and there is no abutment to the rain or water from shedding. And then we would address the flat roof up on top of what I call the pedestal on top of the main part of the old part of the building. We've already done the siding around it, so we would just wrap it and flash it and call that good. So, and then we have leaks other places where the original part of the roof ties into a taller part of the new building where it needs new flashing, and new rubber membrane. It's all peeling back from the existing structure. So
Skylight too.
and the skylight, yeah, and the skylight, which we just had inspected in
Last year.
Last year, yeah.
Questions? Ryan?
The photos were wonderful. I think it helps tell the story of like, clearly there's a need to the project here. I'm just trying to make sense of some of the documents to make sure I understand what it is that we're being asked to do. We have a capital budget request shift, but then secondly, which is directly related to a recommendation for approval of a particular quote. If I understand the first one, we only budgeted 35, but we're over by another 28.
Yeah, we had, we knew we had funds left in the previous library project for the HVAC Phase 4 project. And the idea was to hold said funds and then transfer them once we got to that point. But at the beginning of the year, we transferred fund balance essentially. Sure. So then we just have to reallocate those to this project. Which is why we only budgeted 35,000, because we knew we had the funding available.
Okay, and then, I'm not sure if the question makes more sense now or to close this one and then ask it for the second item. Either way.
Well, if it relates to the second item, we can
I'll
wait and
pause
talk
and
about
do it in
that.
the second item, that way it might make more sense.
That's for the design engineering you're talking about.
Yeah, because one is a capital budget request shift and the other is
To approve the
this group.
contract.
Correct.
I'll wait for this
Yeah.
group item.
Okay. Any other questions about the capital budget?
I should have said, I forgot, I'm sorry, but this does require removal of the solar array on both. This is gonna be one project. It's going to be split into, one bid, split into 2 projects, bid item A, bid item B. One is gonna be the public works garage roof, The other is going to be this facility. We're bidding them all in one project bid because we want the big fish to come out and play. So we're hoping to get a better cost on our bid, all said and done. That would require that both facilities have both of the arrays taken off at the same time, which also for efficiency's sake is actually easier and less costly. We would contact the owner of the solar array facilities at the end of this year so that they are pulled before January of next year, bid the projects in January of next year. So for a given amount of time, we won't have solar arrays, and then it's up to the city council at some point in the future if a future larger solar project is in the works or something that you'd like to do that would make sense at that point. Because presumably, there would also be a solar array on that facility that would be taken down with whatever improvements have to happen over there. A new roof is going to be required on the city hall building at some point, no matter what. And sadly, a new roof is also going to be required for the community center, probably in about the same year, unless we can move them into separate cycles, but it's just a matter of the way it is. So, as Dan says, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So just an FYI, that will have an impact on our operating costs as long as those are no longer up on the rooftops. I've done the math. We've done the math as part of the Office of Energy Innovation project. It's about 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So whatever each facility consumes on an annual basis, and you multiply it by about 3 cents, and that's what the difference is. All of the fixed costs, which are the bulk of our cost anyway with MG&E, which is what utilities are doing nowadays, it's fixed. So it doesn't make a difference if the solar panels are up there or not. So.
Questions, anyone?
Brad, when the roof on the library when this project is finished, though, it'll be ready for more panels if they're needed. It wouldn't be requiring, I mean, all the, how do I say it? It would be solar ready.
Yeah. So yeah, the facilities are all solar ready.
Yeah.
You'd have to talk to an electrical engineer though about like, do we have to upsize inverters or
sure,
anything like that inside of the building to accommodate a larger facility, a more efficient solar array? I'm not sure if we would have to or not. It would be obviously part of the design portion of one of those projects.
Yeah. And is it intended that that would be included in this work? I mean, at least to answer that question and understand what that cost would be?
No.
I'm sure, no?
No.
Okay.
No. Not totally different contractors and totally different engineers. Yep.
Okay.
We would definitely recommend to the city council to pursue a future solar project. You'd want to work with a trustworthy and successful solar consultant or electrical engineer. But honestly, knowing the business and knowing the funding side of it, a consultant would probably be best, maybe not an engineer at that point. They may even have an engineer on retainer that they go to for things like that. So that would be my suggestion.
Anyone else? Nancy?
Yeah, so Brad, just to go back to the ice dam. Is this going to solve it?
Yes.
It will.
Yep.
We won't hear about it again.
No, we have plenty of pitch up there. It's just a matter of they didn't tie in on either one of those additions correctly. Honestly, they tied in exactly the same on each one of the additions, even though one was done 20 plus years ago and one was done 6 years ago.
Yeah, not long ago.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know why they tied it in like that. I wasn't up there when they were putting it together. As soon as I saw it, after the fact,
You knew it was going to happen.
I knew what was happening because we were having it. Water issues pretty much almost exactly a year after our warranty was up.
It's amazing how that works.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
So,
Anyone else? Well, let's move on to the next and final item for Brad. Consideration of Resolution 24-3-2682, approving a contract for design engineering of library rooftop and building envelope repairs, also put forth by the library board.
So yeah, this is just the contract portion. This is to approve the contract with the building envelope group. The amendment will get us within, I talked to Mark, I think it's like $150 or something like that. So we have basically exactly what we need. And if I push hard enough, I can probably get them to get under that 62,477 number. So I have made it clear to them that they need to invoke confidence in me that they have the capacity within their small firm to be able to do both of these projects, the Public Works rooftop and this project. They've made it clear that they do and that they will devote all the staff that they need to get these done on time and in time to bid it properly and to have the numbers updated to City Council for capital budget purposes. And then I reiterated it again, and they said yes. So I will go by their word that they will dedicate the staff that's needed to get this done. The good thing is the Public Works Garage was pushed a year so that we can realign it with this project. And they've already got that project at like a 75% completion.
That's good.
So they can concentrate on getting both ready to go. We go to Facilities Committee, granted, we approved the contract and the amendment in July for an update to Facilities Committee. They get a chance at the 60 to 90% design phase for both. If we need to, we can go back in August right before we meet with the mayor and go over the capital budget requests. And then we should have finalized design soon after that.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Brian, did you have something about this one? Or?
I did, and it's probably Brad, like, reminding me of what we talked about when we went through this at budget. Was this something that was a competitive bid process for this contract, or how did we end up here?
No, the contract was approved in RFP for the Public Works Garage building.
Yep. Okay.
This company did the building envelope study for the Public Works Garage building and the library. And because they were already designing the Public Works Garage building,
We folded this one.
we requested them to give us a
Okay.
proposal for this one.
Awesome. Now I remember that
So
conversation.
beneficial for them, but also efficient for us. We don't have two design firms to deal with.
Yep, and they had to do with, when you were talking about combining the two projects for maybe larger fish rather than
Right.
small firms, that we weren't getting bids.
And that came,
I ran
that
out of
was,
rain.
that was from the Facilities Committee. They recommended that at that point in time.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, this will all be back in 2 weeks. So if you think of any other questions,
Or we could prove now.
we're not going to get into that.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
The
guys.
last two items are both started for immediate approval. Both are because what these do is start the process for arranging for our borrowing, for the already approved capital borrowing and utility, water system, and sewer system revenue bond anticipation notes. So once we approve this, then Jeff Belanger will start the process, and he'll be at the next meeting to present what kind of bids he's gotten and whatever. So is item J, consideration of resolution 24-3-2683, providing for the sale of $3.5 million in general obligation promissory notes, series 2024A, put forth by the finance director. This is started for immediate approval. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Suspend the rules.
No, I'm sorry, suspend the rules and offer a motion to
So do
approve.
we have that, Lee?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
I'll second.
Right.
Um,
And now the other one.
So
Yes.
now is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if Neil had anything to say about this, but I know that this is the borrowing for the capital budget project.
Maybe I can.
Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. You're kind of
Yeah.
hiding at the bottom of the screen there.
Sorry.
We're trying to
so
move
this
you
is
up.
the,
Hang on just a minute.
It's like the dude.
How did we get him on the bottom of this?
There he is.
That's a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Mark, it's all yours.
All right, yeah, so Mary's exactly correct. This is just the authorization for Jeff Belanger, our financial advisor, to start negotiating the bond. So what this is, there's broken up into water and sewer is a revenue bond, and the geo includes general stuff and stormwater. So 3.5 is right now in that number. And if you've been hearing throughout the night, there's been a couple projects from last year that are under budget and some other stuff. So the borrowing should be about 3.4 when it's all said and done, because we have savings from projects, so we can reduce that borrowing. So when it comes back, we're looking probably around 3.4 for the general obligation in the end with that. Also, one other thing I didn't bring up the finances. They also be reduced too, because I think we talked a little bit when we were talking about the referendum. There was a couple items now that they consider operating, so we had to back those out. There was basically two of them related to park projects. Woodland Park was one of them. I can't remember the other one offhand. Was the park project. So that's also reduced in there. So, so we come back here, we'll probably be around 3.4 in the end.
Any questions for Mark? Okay, Aline, do you need a roll call? If there are no questions, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, item K. This is similar, also has a request for immediate action, consideration of Resolution 24-3-2684, providing for the sale of 1.85 million water system and sewer system revenue bond anticipation notes, Series 2024B, also put forth by the Finance Director. It's being put forth for immediate action for the same reason. Is there a motion to take it out of order?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Somebody want to be the second? Second. Okay. Mark?
Yeah, this one's a little bit different because it's a revenue bond supported by revenues of the utilities. With this though, if you notice, it's actually a band. It's a short-term note because you have another 5-year band in the utilities. So with utility bonds, anything that's related like that, they like to have bigger dollar amounts when they go out to the market. So we'll refinance this 2 years with another one and have a larger package to go out there and hopefully get better rates. That's usually what happens with that. But we still be making payments. So what we still would do, we'd still do amortization. We won't just not pay principal for those 2 years. We'll be paying some principals off in those 2 years.
Any questions for Mark? Looks like no questions. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Now we will move on to reports. Any updates, discussion on DEI efforts? Does anybody have anything to report? Teresa?
Yeah. I just happened to catch the second of a really lovely event that's part of a series of events that's been hosted over at St. Stephen's Church. They have a series of events called Just Fridays. It's the first Friday of every month. And just this past Friday, there was a speaker that had really done some amazing things, raising awareness at the local, at the national level about just bigotry and hatred and hate groups and just bringing people together. Some pretty amazing conversations that he had facilitated between some very controversial leaders of hate groups. Before that, there was a presentation the month before about the Ho-Chunk people. I'm just bringing this up because I'm just impressed with all that's going on in our community, and it's nice that our administrators sharing things like that on our Facebook page so that folks can really tune in and learn a little bit about these important topics.
What time are those?
I think they start at 6 or 6:30 the first Friday of every month. And then, I didn't want to steal Aldermore's thunder, there was a pretty big Ho-Chunk event that just happened this past Saturday.
Yeah.
Talk about that, Nancy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking of it as
Yeah.
a DEI event, but yes, the Friends of San Damiano had what was the second Ho-Chunk Games. We didn't have any snow, but there's another game called Alotl that was essentially between the singular spear and the bow and arrow. The Ho-Chunk needed a tool to be able to hunt better. So we had a cougar, a deer, and a bear that people were shooting a lot for points, and it was a beautiful day, of course, for it, and we very much want to thank Bill Quackenbush, the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, for leading everybody through it and sharing more about the history of the Ho-Chunk.
Anyone else have anything to share? Any updates on sustainability efforts?
I had something, I guess I just wanted to thank my colleagues for something that happened recently here that was just to consider the addition of a staff person as a sustainability coordinator. And for those that are listening, I just want to make it very clear, I've had some questions, and so I'll just clarify it now, that decision did not sort of, we're not, writing up a PD, and we're not actively recruiting at this point. It's just, we've made it possible to have that person at some point in the future, pending the outcome of a referendum later this fall. So, but without that decision, this position would not have even been in the queue. The second thing I was going to say is I was just taking a walk around the neighborhood, and by no coincidence, I'm bringing up another church in the community, which is kind of funny that would even be happening. But on the corner of Nichols and McKenna Road over at the United Methodist, they've got a brand new solar array on their roof, and it's pretty exciting to see that going in. So if you're walking around, take a look. It's very hopeful to see.
Anyone else? How about reports of committees, et cetera? Alder DePula?
Let's see. Not too much. Just this week's Public Works meeting will have it's a pretty large agenda, and we've got some issues regarding the neighborhood involving Wallace and Gordon and traffic calming stuff that we're going to discuss. So that's pretty much what's on the agenda.
Alder Holmquist?
No report.
Alder Moore?
No report.
Alder Rademacher?
All right. So I'll just start with one of our committee's sustainability. We're wrapping up our winter campaign, which really focuses on educating people about salt use. It hasn't been much of a salt use winter this year, but knock on wood. But I just want to give a very public thank you to some students at the MG21 school who worked with one of our committee volunteers to record 4 public service announcements that are in rotation on WVMO. It's a really lovely partnership. It's always great to work with the students. And the nice thing about the PSAs is that even though, this year may not have been very snowy and salty, next year might. So we have those ready to go for next year.
We're not past the boys' basketball tournament yet, so we can still.
Not over till it's over.
Not over. And then we'll be meeting this Thursday as a committee. We're going to start coordinating for our spring campaign, thinking about, land use, residential land use, pollinator habitat, natural plants, native planting, things like that. And then also sort of an exciting thing that's happening is, if I can just get my notes here, is Thor has our city staff liaison to the Sustainability Committee has been working to put together sort of a request for an RFP to really sort of get a handle on what it would cost to hire a consultant to come up with a proper energy roadmap. You know, we talk about roof replacements here and there and, you know, this and that and this, all the buildings, and just to really understand how do we meet our commitments to getting toward that, you know, big, to reducing our energy use. So that's a really exciting thing. All right, next. No. So Landmarks Commission, something really exciting happening in Landmarks is that we got a grant, $22,000 brought in for our Frostwoods Historic District, where Alder Holmquist lives, and that money's going to be put to use to hire a contractor to do some research and preparation for getting Frostwoods what it needs to do to get established as a historic district.
Patrick lives
which
there
is,
too.
oh, I'm sorry, that's right. That's right, I forgot, that's right. So you're welcome. And also the month of May is National Historic Preservation Month, so we'll be talking about some activities coming down the pike that our volunteers might be involved in. Community media, a lot going on there, but I'll just, the one highlight that I'll say is that I think this last month's newsletter was the biggest we've seen yet. It's just fabulous how that's growing, and one of our volunteers did a lot of work into researching how to make it ADA compliant, making sure all the colors and the background of the font and the foreground, it was for low vision readers, that it was, you know, accessible to everyone. That was a really nice touch that she did. DEIB, we're just waiting on something from Nehemiah, and then we'll get back into the swing of that committee. And then tourism, I guess I just thought I'd take the opportunity just to remind folks out there. I just got into a conversation this weekend with someone who was very involved in the Special Olympics, and that sort of just kicked off a conversation about some of the events that they're coordinating and how they're overnight stay events, and just if you're, you know, a person out there who's working with organizations and you are bringing in people and there's a chance for them to stay overnight in Monona, please go to the City of Monona website, look up the tourism information there. There's potential grant dollars that you could apply for.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. You're not having an e-cycle event this year?
No, not for Earth Day, but thank you. The parks always have their cleanup day that's correlating with Earth Day, and there's going to be an Arbor Day event that the parks are doing, I know, but not e-cycle, not this year.
Somebody was asking.
Apparently, that's a pretty popular thing. A lot of communities already booked it, so we didn't jump fast enough. But
okay.
Yeah.
Alder Bernstein?
Yes, I just have one quick item, but it's a request to the council and the mayor. April 7th through the 13th is National Library Week, and the library board thought it would be a nice token of appreciation to get thank you cards or gratitude cards from city council members. So I've reserved the first 14 names, hoping that
Who do these cards go to?
the staff
Oh.
at the library. So there are 24 staff, and I've reserved 14 of those names for city council and the mayor, to each take 2. So if you're willing to do that, I have cards here with instructions. If not, you know, I can take whatever many are left over, but I'd really appreciate it if council members would be willing to do that. And I can give you the names and jobs and tenure. So some of the people on the library staff, 4 of them are over 20 years, one's over 30. And they vary to as much as less than a year. But if you're willing to participate, let me know and we can collaborate. If not, I'll make up the difference.
Okay, thank you. I guess, Ryan, if you want to have some kind of a resolution for National Library Week, we could do it at either of the next 2 meetings, it sounds like, because we've got one on the 19th and one on the 1st. So just talk to Leah about it. I'm sure ALA has a pro forma one you could just send Leah. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I should have corrected. When you asked whether the Sustainability Committee would be doing an e-cycling event, we will be. It just won't be on Earth Day.
Oh.
It will be later in the year, so
okay.
Folks should still save up their stuff. And,
Okay,
yeah,
well, that's
okay.
good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Now we will go to staff updates. Ryan, anything?
No updates.
No updates? Chief, we know you have updates.
Getting close to 9, so I will, we have to make sure.
Oh,
I'm
it's
fast.
early, yeah.
We're putting her in charge of that, eh?
Good evening. I will introduce this wonderful person to my left here in a second. I just wanted to thank the mayor for letting me take a little vacation this month. As our newest member here knows, I tried my best to practice and preach a good work-life balance, and so I was doing just that, enjoying South America and all of its wonders, and first time traveling to Brazil. So those of you who might even think about traveling down south, please get a hold of me, or I'm sure if you haven't already, get a hold of Alder Moore, who's traveled this globe, to really encourage you to seek out new adventures and meet new people and learn about new cultures. It was really rewarding. So I did spend some time in Argentina, which helps me brush up on my Spanish. So, okay. Been very busy. We've included the January monthly report. As you all know, January was fairly busy for us. But also there was a lot of continued good work being done by your staff, a lot of community outreach that's being done. And so what I'll say to that is, regardless of what's being sometimes portrayed in certain media outlets about community engagement efforts, it is happening, and we're going to continue to do it regardless of what colorful portrayal exists in the media sometimes when we do it, because it is the right thing to do to connect with people, to reach out and to learn and grow. And I want folks to be comfortable with interacting with Monona Police, and so our officers have a mission to continue to do that, look for opportunities to engage and to find opportunities where they can learn more about people and vice versa. So we're going to continue to do that. Alder DePula, I am not available Wednesday. However, please let me know if the committee would like a representative from the police department there for that discussion related to Wallace Gordon. As many of you know, there was a public sort of listening session. You may not know, I think you all do. Okay, I'm sorry. The neighborhood had, several of the neighbors, particularly on Wallace, had requested to do a sort of a brainstorming session. I suggested a listening session, and it included the leadership at the high school. The principal was there, just to talk about some of the driving behaviors, some of the parking behaviors, some of the littering, and other concerns that the neighborhood had. And so we reached out to Alder Pula, who had been involved in these conversations from the public works perspective as it relates to some of the parking regulation, and it just made sense. So that was well attended. I think we had a lot of good ideas come out of that event. And our new, well, he's not our new employee, our crossing guard, who is now taking on a new role of this community service officer position, has been out there engaging our young persons and trying to encourage them to park correctly and to engage in good positive behavior while they're going to and from their class. So that's been positive, and obviously our officers are doing a lot more presence and enforcement out in that area to try to address some of the concerns. Now, I will say these concerns have been going on and some of the behaviors that have been going on even before I've been chief, and according to Wally, have been going on for some time based on some of my understanding. But that's not to say we shouldn't try to address some of the problems and be creative in some of the thinking about some of the solutions, which Alder DePula and others are taking head on. So I'm there to help. Please, I understand police department has a big stake in it, but we won't be able to ticket our way out of this. So I appreciate the creativity. Let's see, I do have a small list, and you're not helping me keep it short. Thank you very much. Two more things. Training, we just completed active threat training. For all of you who may be familiar or not, we participate in a training consortium with other municipalities. That is Oregon, Stoughton, McFarland, and Verona. So that's different than that NPSIS technology group, right, record sharing group. So it's a training consortium in which we combine our resources and train together, and we do several trainings throughout the year. Active threat training, think about, a better term is active shooter, right? And so we recently held a training event at a school in Stoughton that is to be demolished. So that gave us free reign of this wonderful school that's going to be demolished. New this year, new to the training consortium is Cottage Grove. So they previously, I think, trained on their own. So we brought in Cottage Grove to train with us. And in my going on 3 years here, that by far has been a very rewarding experience for our officers, and even our dispatchers were able to attend. And it's been very, very positive. So we hope to build on that and learn from some of the good takeaways from that moving forward in all the trainings that we do. Okay. I am familiar. I haven't gotten a chance to email all of you. A couple of you have emailed me reference the stickers that were placed on property at Monona Grove, the tennis courts. Some complexities there. We will own that because it's on Monona Grove property. However, please know that that is City of Madison jurisdiction.
Right.
But we are sort of the tennis courts on East Cold Spring. Our SRO has been assigned. We're reviewing cameras, and we're sort of investigating as best we can with something like that. So I appreciate not assuming that I knew about it, because I didn't until I got the first email from one of you. So thank you very much, so that we could look into it. And our SRO is reaching out to the original complainant to try to get more information and to narrow down the timeline.
Nice.
Okay, this is Annie.
Hi, Annie.
Annie's a wonderful new dispatcher. I prepped her. I said this is a very tough group.
Right.
No, I actually said this is a wonderful group. I look forward to the council meetings, something that I didn't necessarily do look forward to in my previous job. But I look forward to this council, and there's good folks on this council. So Annie is here for any questions you may have of her. Go.
What's your favorite food?
No.
Did she say Italian food? Did she say Italian food? Seriously, come on. Say something in Russian.
I did let them know you.
I heard you speak Russian.
Здравствуйте.
See, that's so cool.
Go on.
So I, as you know, I usually try to bring our newest employees here to meet all of you wonderful people. It's a good experience for them. It's a good time to put faces to names. They certainly hear about you. If they don't see you, you call in, or there's information I'm trying to gather for you, and our wonderful dispatchers help with that. So Annie's got probably 2 or so weeks left of training, maybe, give or take, and is doing very, very well. So welcome, Annie, to the team. Here are the people who I answer to.
It's nice
Yes.
to meet all of you.
Welcome. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Any questions of me, folks?
What's your favorite?
You know,
What's my favorite food? I also like pizza.
yeah.
Gourmet.
I guess, Chief, I was just going to say something. I went to the recent EDGER meeting that the MESBA puts on, and you were there, and you said a few words, and I just thought it was important to reiterate, again, for those who might be listening. You put together these amazing, wonderful, detailed reports, and it might be easy for someone to get the assumption that there's a hell of a lot of crime just going on everywhere, every corner. But in reality, crime is falling.
Yes.
It's falling. You can do a Google search, and the evidence is overwhelming. Throughout the entire world, the country, crime is falling. It has been falling for generations. And we just have better ways to report it, better ways to document it. But thank you for all you do. I'm not trying to diminish what you do. You certainly do have a lot that you do attend to, but
We're not running out of work for you to do.
Right, exactly.
Right. As much as I try to put myself out of a job,
exactly,
it's not
exactly.
happening quite.
And Monona
Thank
is a
you
very
for-
safe place.
It is.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it, Annie. That's all you have.
Okay, thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yes.
Thanks for coming by. City Clerk?
Yes, in-person voting for the April election is going to be the 19th through the 29th. That's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We're going to have extra hours Saturday, the 23rd, from 8 to noon. There's more information on our website on the elections page. That's it.
I'll be sure to announce that on the
Yeah.
8 to noon on Saturday.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Mayor, I'm so sorry, I just remembered something. May
Sure.
I'll keep it there, 60 seconds.
That's okay.
I wanted just to let you all know, so last week we had our staff in service. During the in-service, staff had the opportunity to participate in a core strengths assessment and then have someone from core strengths facilitate the platform itself, and they'll have access to the platform for 12 months. I can share with you all my core strengths assessment. I'd be comfortable doing that, just to help staff look at what they're great at, what they could improve at. And then part of this also allows you to kind of link your accounts and then looking at your strengths, how best to essentially communicate with one another based on your strengths. So share this with the board. I was introduced to this in my Embracing Equity and thought it was fantastic and think it'll be great for staff. It's just a way to invest in staff and kind of improve on what they can do, not only with our patrons but also with each other. And then along those lines, last year, the library board put forth the first, to our knowledge, climate survey to the staff, and they just shared this year's version of that, just to assess how things are going with library staff, in their roles at the library itself, and what the board can do to improve their work environment. So just to share all that with you all.
Right,
Well,
can
thank
you remind me, the first thing you mentioned, the core strength, that's a new program that you just implemented?
Well, it's essentially a product, so it's a platform.
Which, yeah, I remember it was just recently part of the budget request that you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
the same, I
and-
was wondering if that was the same one I was remembering.
I
Okay.
believe so. And
Yeah.
then, so that's, and I'm happy to share, if you're curious, I'll share out kind of my results.
Mhm.
You can see where I have, based on the assessment, my number one strength, and they call it lesser strength or something. They don't like to use
Your
negative words.
opportunities.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. So I can share that with you later
That's
on.
cool.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. City Administrator.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, I just want to remind you all to check with your committee members. Leah sent you, those who are chairs, sent you lists of people whose terms are up, see if they want to be reappointed. I'd like to have that information by the end of March, certainly. I already know of some committees I'm going to open a search for applicants, but I just soon kind of get them all out there at the same time. And then I think you were all copied on the email to a constituent who was asking about the short-term rental and saying that back in January, we just were not getting things up and running, and I asked Neil to send a letter to everyone, I think there were 42 or something, we know of, to tell them that we are putting off implementing the short-term rental ordinance until July 1st. I do anticipate we're probably going to be bringing some recommendations for a few changes to the ordinance. It's one of those things that as you get into it, trying to implement some of these things is not easy. So I'm hoping to set up a meeting with staff within the next week or two to discuss that, because we need to get moving on what those might be. So hopefully we are ready to go on July 1st. So.
Can I say a couple things? Just, I think, we are actually implementing, we are still accepting applications right now, so we are encouraging anyone we are identifying through our software to, if they do not have an application in, to get them in to us so we can begin to review those. Some of the issues we're having in terms of coordination is in terms of how to proceed with certainly scheduling our own inspection versus the Dane County Health inspection, figuring out exactly how that is coordinated. Other items in terms of the exception requests, making sure we actually have some policies in place and guidelines to ensure we are doing that fairly and equitably. We've gotten some I guess not say concerning feedback, but some concerns raised by Attorney Cole in terms of our making sure we are doing that fairly. That if we don't do that fairly, we could end up causing more harm than good to our ordinance. So just kind of some cleaning up a few procedural things, making sure we've got the right, most efficient way of reviewing the applications at a staff level. We've got, certainly everyone's busy enough. We just need to make sure that we're doing it in the most cost-effective and time-effective way possible.
So more to come on that hopefully soon. So, we have one last thing. I have an appointment. Finally found a good candidate for Board of Review, Ginny Jasty. You have her Application form, she is an attorney. She's been working at the law school for quite a while. Before that, she was in private practice, and she met with Aline and I last week and said that she did actually encounter some of these types of cases when she was in private practice, so she's well aware of, you know, what's required of a board of review, and she'll go through training for that. So I'm really happy to finally fill that position, and we have a full, I think it's been 2 years now that we've had our second alternate. It's the type of position that really could use some specialized background, so I'm really happy we found an attorney. And she's also interested in serving on some other committees if something comes up, which, given that Board of Review only meets once or twice a year, certainly, I told her I'd certainly be willing to consider her for other things too, so. Other than that, I think that's everything. Is there a motion to adjourn? Or, I'm sorry, is there a motion to approve? Yeah.
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Now is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you.
Thank you, sir.